Hello everyone, welcome to Time Chat. I'm your host, Dr. Ivan Khan. Today on Time Chat, we'll be speaking with the director of Consistoreal's Common Core program, Ms. Nadia Hussain. In 2013, New York State, following a larger national trend, adopted the Common Core standards in an attempt to improve the learning outcomes of its student base. The first year that the Common Core tests were administered in New York City, only 26% of students in the 3rd through 8th grade passed the English test, and only 30% passed math. These numbers were a drastic drop from the year before, in which 47% of students passed English and 60% passed math. When Consistoreal heard about the transition, our team quickly started developing a program that would better help prepare our students. This program includes workshops to inform parents and students about the changes in the tests, monthly diagnostics in the spring, and parent-teacher conferences so that we all remain in constant communication with everyone at stake. Today, we're joined by Ms. Hussain, who leads Consistoreal's Common Core program. We're currently in the 3rd year of our Common Core program. Last year, Ms. Hussain's program helped 325 students in grades 3 through 8 achieve the highest grade of 4 on their ELA and math exams. This placed students among the top 9% in the ELA and the top 16% of students in math for the entire state. Having been a KT/SHSET student herself, who later graduated from Stuyvesant, became a K-6 instructor, and now went on to becoming the Common Core director, it's exciting for all the students at Cons to learn from someone who's been through the process themselves. Without further ado, I'll introduce Ms. Nadia Hussain. Nadia, thank you so much for joining us at Time Chat.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
So, it's only 6 weeks away, 5 weeks away from now, from the Common Core exams of 2016. You're in your 3rd year. Tell us about the latest changes to your program this past year.
So basically, our Common Core program, it starts in January. So it's a 4-month program, and in January we launch into the full test prep program. So what's different this year is that we have weekly lessons and weekly classwork for both ELA and math. So what we do is we take the entire math curriculum and we take the entire ELA curriculum and we consolidate it into 4 months. So we spread all the topics within those 4 months, and we have weekly lessons so that we can cover the entire curriculum in those 4 months. It's okay for the students because they've covered this in school, so it's essentially review for them, and we want to make sure that they have the time to review it at Consistoreal before the tests come up so that they're confident going into the tests.
So that's just January through April. That's when this Common Core season starts for most students in New York City. That's when the season starts for your teammates. What are students in your program learning throughout the rest of the months, from May through September, September through December? If it's not testing season, what are they doing in your classrooms then?
So the main difference between the seasons is that in January we launched the test prep portion of the Common Core curriculum.
Okay.
For the rest of the year, they're still doing the Common Core curriculum, but we don't. We quiz them and stuff, but we don't introduce the test prep portion until later on because we want to make sure that they understand it conceptually before we start testing them on stuff.
Wow. So how's it looking for the students right now? How many students are going to be taking the test from your program next month?
We have, so for the last diagnostic, over 600 students took it. So,
wow.
And we're expecting more students to enroll in the program because this always happens as the tests get closer. So it's going to be a lot of students.
But even though Common Core is from grades K through 8, what grade does the testing start for you all?
The testing starts in the 3rd grade. So students in grades 3 through 8 will be taking the test.
All right. So there are a lot of young moms and dads and students at home who are in grades 1 and 2, and they're hearing about Common Core, they're hearing about the test, they're hearing about Governor Cuomo, they're hearing about a lot of things in politics. What should students in the 2nd and 3rd grade look forward to if it's their first time taking the Common Core tests?
So the students in the 1st and 2nd grade aren't going to be taking the test, but they're still following the same Common Core curriculum. They're actually at an advantage over the older students because the Common Core curriculum was only introduced 3 years ago. So if you're in, say, 6th grade and 3rd grade, you had to take the Common Core test. But the third grade was the first year that you were introduced to this new curriculum. So students in grades K, 1, and 2, they're following this same curriculum and they're building up to that level. So for them, I would just tell them to pay attention to what they're learning in class, make sure that they understand it conceptually, because that's the main change from the older curriculum to the new Common Core curriculum. And with that, they should be fine going into grade 3 for testing, because the only thing that's going to change for them is that they're going to be taking a test at the end of the year.
So the students currently in grades 1 and 2 and K, they have the advantage because they're preparing up till third grade for their first round of exams. But take us back a little bit. Why is there a Common Core state standards as it is, and how is it different from what students like you and me who grew up in the New York City system faced in the past?
So the Common Core standards are a nationwide initiative. What happened was they gathered a bunch of teachers, a bunch of state officials, people involved in education policy and things like that, and they decided that they wanted to improve the curriculum that we use in both elementary, middle school, and high school, but we're focusing on elementary school here. The reason for that is because America as a whole is being outperformed by various other nations.
Like what? Like which countries?
Singapore in math.
Singapore. Any other ones that the Common Core is adopted from that they've looked at?
The math portion, I think Singapore is the biggest one that it comes from. I'm not sure what other countries.
So it started 3 years ago, and the schools had a lot of difficulty putting it in place. There was a lack of training at the school level. Parents were nervous, but now everyone's getting more and more used to it. But we're seeing all the scary things on Facebook about Common Core is the enemy, Common Core is the enemy, and it's an election year. How do you feel about the Common Core standards?
So Common Core is a huge hot button issue right now, especially because it's election year. My view, I've looked through the entire standards, and I think it was a good move creating and adopting these standards, because when you compare them to the standards that we have before, they are asking much more of students, and they are preparing them better for high school and college. And so I think it was a necessary step to take. I do understand where parents and teachers and all this controversy is coming from, though, because it was a terrible, terrible implementation. The first year that the Common Core states were administered in New York, teachers were only told about this new curriculum halfway into the school year. They were expected to prepare the students for this new curriculum that they didn't know about. They hadn't been trained on it. They had no idea what was going to be on the test. And so obviously a lot of
There's a lot of resistance
arose.
and tension.
Yeah.
So what changes have you seen in your program at KT? The program had about 200 plus perfect scores 1 to 2 years ago. This past year you had 325 plus students scoring in 4s, not even counting the 7th grade students. You already have more than 500 students taking the standards now. So what changes have you guys done at KT in your program?
So the program is becoming better and better because of the experience that we're able to build upon. So the first year of the program, we struggled as much as teachers at any school did, because there was a lack of information available, there was a lack of material available, so you kind of had to run around and put your own thing together, interpret the standards on your own, find stuff that would work and kind of push it into the curriculum. As the years have gone by, New York State itself has released more information.
Good.
So they've been releasing, so the first year that they did it, there was no previous test, so that wasn't available to parents, teachers, or us, so we had no idea how the questions were going to be structured. After the first year, we had that information available, and so we were able to build upon that to closely produce questions that followed the template that they used. And as the years go on, we just have more of that material available, and so we're able to better perfect our program to reflect the changes that are taking place on the test.
I see you've brought some material to support that.
Yes.
does Consultorial make your own diagnostics for the Common Core?
Yes, we do. So there are two types of diagnostics that we administer at Cons Tutorial during Common Core testing season. So the first thing that we do is we administer the Common Core released questions. So what these are is, as I previously mentioned, New York State releases a sampling of the questions that they that were on the test last year. So what we do is we take those questions, we format them into a diagnostic, and we administer this to the students. We do this towards the beginning of the program so that students are become accustomed to the types of questions that they're going to be asked to answer, and so that this is in the back of their mind when they're doing the work.
Has it worked for the students?
It's worked for the students, yeah. And we use, so when the students are exposed to these questions, we do this early on in the program. When they're exposed to it the second time around, the second diagnostic that we administer, because they've already seen it before, they perform better on that.
Fantastic.
Basically, they're improving as well.
And there's a lot of changes, and students aren't the only ones who matter in this equation. What are you and your quality managers at the 10 Cons locations doing to communicate to parents? I mean, I was very fortunate in that having Dr. Mansour Khan and Ms. Laima Khan as my parents, and a lot of parents want to know what they can do more. They're ready, they have the time. আমরা আর কি করতে পারি বাসাতে? আমরা আর কিভাবে push করতে পারি? So what are you doing to communicate with them?
So Cons Tutorial is very, very big on communication with parents. We have parent-teacher conferences after every single session when the parents come to pick up the student. The instructor that taught them for that day fills them in on what they did for that day. And then on top of that, we also have Common Core report cards. So they look like this.
All right.
Basically, after an instructor works with the student, what they do is they log on to the database that we have, and they put in all their grades for the day. So for ELA classwork, ELA homework, math classwork, math homework. And then on top of that, there's a huge comment portion, which is the main part of it, where the instructor writes about how the student handled the material today. If they didn't handle it well, what are the next steps that the instructor is going to take to make sure that the student understands this material well. So this is really valuable information for the parent, and we hand this to them at the end of every single month so that they can stay updated on their students' progress, and also so that they have some, if they're working with their students at home, they have something that helps them know where the student is and what they should be focusing on.
So that must have taken a long time for creating and training everyone. What are some of the highlights you've seen after using this new system?
It's much more organized. It ends up being, like the students, it ends up being much better for the students because you have all this information available on them. And so when an instructor sits down with the student, they can go back and check what they did last week, what they did 2 weeks ago, and build off of that. So there's not time wasted at the beginning of the session where they ask the student, what do you need help with? What have you been working on? What are you struggling with? All that information is there, and it's accurate.
Wow, so this is a lot. I mean, so grades 3, 4, 5. A lot of people ask about Hunter. So how does the Common Core and Hunter have any connection? Hunter High School entrance exam.
So in order to be invited to take the Hunter High School exam, you need to have scored a 4 on both your Common Core ELA and math exams the year before in the 5th grade. So that's how they're tied.
So in 5th grade, if you get perfect scores, then you take the Hunter exam in the 6th grade?
Yeah.
All right. So New York State has had challenges to implement the Common Core, but they're getting much, much better. Cons Tutorial has learned from New York State's lessons. How many teachers do you have in your Common Core program now?
There are a lot. I can't remember off the top of my head.
So you have 10 centers.
10
Each center has at least 10 to 15 Common Core instructors, so that's about 100 to 150. How have your instructors responded to all the changes for your program at Cons?
So the instructors have been going through this entire 3-year journey with us. A lot of them have been here for that entire time. A lot of instructors are new, but Basically, what we do with the instructors is as soon as we learn something new about the test, it's still constantly changing because they're still refining it. We share that with the instructors immediately. We share that with the managers immediately, and then they share it with their team at their center. So, for example, this year we learned that the state test wouldn't be timed this year. So, as soon as I found out, I immediately shared that with the managers, told them to let their instructors know, and the instructors communicate it back to the students and the parents. On top of that, we also introduce these changes into our program immediately. So since the tests aren't going to be timed this year, we're focusing much less on students finishing within the time frame that they had to finish within for the previous 2 years.
That must have been the best news for students to not have a timed test.
Yeah.
Nadia, excuse us, please. We're going to have to. You've been watching Time Chat. We're joined by Nadia Hussein, the director of the Common Core at Conservatorial. We'll be right back after these messages. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Time Chat. I'm your host, Dr. Ivan Khan. We're joined by Nadia Hussein, the director of Conservatorial's Common Core program for all 10 locations. So Nadia, we had a chance to hear a lot about the Common Core program at Conservatorial, the 150 plus Common Core instructors. Tell us about yourself. You were educated in the New York City school system. Tell us about your academic pathways and some advice that you'd give for students that showed up after you.
So I've been very lucky. I just happened to, like my parents are immigrants as well, but I just happened to live in a good neighborhood that had good schools with good teachers. So I got a really good education. And you previously mentioned that I went to Stuyvesant, but the base for me getting into Stuyvesant was built when I was younger. And it's because I had great teachers. Like I wasn't using the Common Core curriculum, but they still knew how to teach. And so I didn't realize it as I was growing up, this privilege that I had. And actually, after I started working at Conservatorial, I realized that this wasn't the norm. And so that's what really inspired me to get involved within education policy and curriculum development and all that stuff. Most kids aren't as fortunate as I was, and so I feel like it's important for me to pass on what I've learned and what I have.
It's so fantastic that you went to Stuyvesant High School, you've graduated from there in great standing, and you thought about ways that you realized that, oh my gosh, not everyone's as lucky as you were. Just recently, we found out that Conservatorial is sending 325 students to specialized high schools. About 10% of the class at Stuyvesant High School will be from Conservatorial. Close to 10%. And what advice do you have for students attending Stuyvesant, attending Bronx Science, attending Brooklyn Tech? They're done with the Common Core phase in their lives, but specialized high schools or any top school, what advice do you have for them?
Specialized high schools are a brand new phase in your life. So I actually wasn't expecting the amount of work that Stuyvesant or any specialized high school expects you to complete. And so for them, they're at this great place because they've just gotten into this fantastic school, but this is just the beginning of the journey for them. And they really have to keep in mind that they can't start goofing off now. Like, this is when the real work begins, and they have to put in their effort, do their part to get through this, because you have this great opportunity now, and you can't waste it. Like, you have to take advantage of it. So,
what was your favorite moment at Stuyvesant, Nadia?
At Stuyvesant, I think my favorite part of Stuyvesant was the people that I met and the people that I was constantly surrounded with. Everyone at Stuyvesant is there to learn, and they all have unique worldviews, and they're really there to support one another, and they're all they got into Stuyvesant High School, so they're all bright, intelligent people, and they come from all 5 boroughs of New York City, and it's like, it was the most diverse setting I'd been put in, but also the most highly educated, diverse setting that I'd ever been put in, and so that was a great part of it.
Sounds like a challenging place, full of enrichment. What goals do you have for your Common Core students for 2016, for 2017? What other ways do you hope to improve your program, and which will lead to more academic success for them?
So you spoke about how how Common Core has been all over Facebook, all over the news because it's an election year, how people are scared of it. Last year, New York State had a 20% opt-out rate of the test. So one of my main goals for the program this year and also going forward is to help students and parents stop being afraid of the standards. Like, the standards were developed to help them, achieve more in their education goals. And so you really want to instill the confidence that they need to perform well in school through this program.
And I understand that the test-taking rate in the 5 boroughs was much greater than the rest of New York State.
Yeah.
So that's good news for most of students in our community here in the 5 boroughs. That test-taking rate is still above 85-90%. As far as the amount of test takers eligible. So with that, what are you hoping for all students in your grades and for the future, after they're done with the Common Core, after they're done?
Well, so I hope that they take whatever they've learned through I mentioned that the main change was that they wanted to focus on conceptually teaching students under Common Core, and so the advantage of this over just memorizing formulas or facts is that you can carry this on in whatever field you end up pursuing in the future. So critical thinking is a skill that you're going to use in whatever you're doing, and it's an important, like, not just in academia, it's an important life skill. And so I hope students really, besides test taking, I hope students really are able to develop and refine these skills within themselves. It's a lifelong process.
And speaking of that, how would your friends and family describe you?
Me?
Yeah. You're the director of this big, ginormous program that's helping hundreds of kids score perfectly. How would they describe you, the leader at the top?
I think they're proud of me. I hope they are. I've always been a pretty academic person. I think it didn't start with me going to Stuyvesant, but they took note of it when I started going to Stuyvesant. I'm looking to apply to PhD programs in the fall. So education is a huge part of my life, and so I think my friends and family see that within me. They've seen that within me for years, and so it just makes sense that I'm working on Common Core related stuff right now.
It's been an amazing conversation, Nadia. A final question for you. As you stated in the past, both you and I may have been very, very fortunate to have family members that were very, very nurturing in our pursuit of academics. I know a lot of students in our communities watching at home would like to take a few final tips from you. What final advice do you have for the families, the young families, the moms and dads with the young kids? How can they reach some of the academic success that you've reached and you're still building on?
One, have confidence in yourself, and two, put in the work necessary to have that. Like, confidence is something, you can't just have it, you have to build that within yourself. And the best way to go about doing that is to put in the work necessary to understand these concepts, these math concepts, to put in the work necessary to develop your writing, to work on grammar, things like that. If you go into the test knowing that you're prepared, then you're not going to have a problem performing well on these tests and also in the future.
Well, there's about a month left till the exam, and I really, really look forward to hearing about your results, and we hope to have you back on Time Chat sometime this year.
Hope so.
Nadia, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You just had a chance to hear from Nadia Hussein, the director of the Common Core program at Constatorial, where more than hundreds of students are preparing for their exams next year. As we've stated, the Common Core state standards have been adopted nationally across the U.S. And no matter what you hear in the election cycle this year, you're going to always hear two sides of the politics. You'll have the Republicans on the right that will say, I'm going to end Common Core, I'm going to end Common Core. monsters like Donald Trump and things like that are threatening to do with the Common Core. But as we've heard from our expert today, the Common Core has been rooted in excellence in math and ELA, and it's been designed by mathematicians who've adopted from countries like Singapore and other parts of that world to really help bring the U.S. education level up. If you're a parent watching at home, and if your children are in grades 3 through 8, you'll still have Common Core exams every single April. Be sure to become involved in your school. Be sure to speak to your parents' teachers about questions that you may have about their upcoming exams. And if you're ever fearful or anxious, there's a lot of people you can call, starting with Nadia for her program. So I just want to wish everyone a strong Common Core prep month. It's March. There's only 1 month left. And from the bottom of our hearts at Time Chat and Time Television and Nadia's program at Constatorial, we look forward to hearing about the excellence of all of our viewers at home. Thank you for watching Time Chat today. I'm your host, Dr. Ivan Khan. We look forward to seeing you next week when we'll be joined by several students that have done amazingly recently in their own academics. Until then, please always remember, pay it forward.